We're back, and for the next segment, we're going to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic relief proposals and how they are or will affect the U.S. economy. With me this morning are Joel Griffith, who is a Heritage Foundation Research Fellow, and Thea Lee, who is the president of the Economic Policy Institute. And they're going to be here with me to talk about these issues. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, first of all, I'm going to put this question to both of you. What and how would you describe the state of the U.S. economy right now? We know that there are more than 10 million workers who are still out there and haven't found a job. So, Joel, first, tell me what you think the state of the U.S. economy is, and then Thea, give me your response.
Okay.
All right, and thank you for having me this morning. It's great to be on with Thea as well. Well, the state of the U.S. economy is really a tale of two different economies right now. Now, we have a number of states that have reopened. The economies are booming again. In fact, there are 7 states right now that the economy is larger now than it was pre-pandemic. States like Utah and Idaho and Georgia. These states are actually bigger now as far as their economy than before, but that's because the governors and the mayors have largely reopened those states, and they did it efficiently and quickly. But meanwhile, you have places, if you visit Manhattan, which I did just a few months ago, you've got a place where 500,000 people or so have left. You've got tens of thousands of businesses that have gone under, and you have an unemployment rate in the double digits across that entire region. So really, if you travel to Miami versus New York City, you will see two different economies, and that is because you have one system that has allowed the people to re-enter society, and you have another, the governor and mayor of New York and Illinois and also California, that have put these draconian restrictions on people, and the damage is really overwhelming.
And Thea, what do you think about the state of the U.S. economy right now?
The economy is tremendously damaged and impacted by this pandemic and the recession that came with it. You mentioned that there are 10 million people out of work. There's really more like 25 million people who've been impacted by the pandemic right now. People who have lost their job and are looking for a job, that's the 10 million that are counted as unemployed. But there are a whole lot of folks who are working, but they're working fewer hours. And there are also people who can't work because either they have to stay home and take care of their kids or someone in their family, or for other pandemic-related reasons. And so the damage to the economy, as Joel said, I would agree with him that there are, two economies. Some people call it a K-shaped recovery, where people who can work from home and so on have done fine and their income has been well. But I would not make it a political divide, because the point has been that this pandemic devastated businesses, it devastated families, and so the decision to reopen is one that has to be made when it is safe. And so right now, we have whole sectors that have been devastated, leisure, hospitality, travel, a lot of business, office buildings, and so on. And then we have a lot of people, and it has been a tremendously disparate impact of this economy on low-income people, on essential workers, on Black and Latino and Asian workers, women workers, young workers. So this is about very far from a healthy economy, even in the places that Joel mentioned.
It's always great to start these conversations with people agreeing with each other. But let's go to the next point. Describe for me your view of President Biden's American Rescue Plan. So, Thea, what are the pros and cons of Biden's American Rescue Plan, Thea? And then, Joel, give me your response.
I think President Biden's $1.9 trillion rescue plan is exactly what the economy needs right now, that this is a bold and ambitious plan that would both help small businesses, would help individuals, it would help folks who are still on unemployment insurance a whole year into this pandemic. And it is at the scale of the problem, because there's been such an enormous hole busted into the U.S. economy, a lot of jobs that aren't coming back, a lot of sectors that will not recover. This requires a big effort from the U.S. government. It's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. But I think that this will give people who are struggling the resources they need, but it will also put enough juice into the economy so that small businesses can recover and reopen, so that people have money in their pockets, so they can go out and help fuel a strong recovery, not just to kind of limp back to where we might have been before, but actually to address some of the underlying structural problems that were exposed during the pandemic.
So, Joel, what do you think?
This $1.9 trillion is wasteful, and it will actually result in slower, longer-term economic growth. And, to what Thea just said, talking about the need to juice the economy, well, the fact is the economy has been juiced. It's been juiced by the reopening. Q3, we saw record economic growth, and that was actually in a quarter in which government transfer payments declined. So we saw economic growth coming back because states and cities, local governments are reopening. Now, as far as the package itself, if you look at the details of this package, you realize the cronyisms and the inefficiency that's embedded within this. Take the transportation component, for instance. The majority of these funds, or about half of the funds in the transportation component, go to mass transit systems. Well, mass transit only accounts for about 5% of daily travel for Americans, but yet half of this goes to mass transit. In fact, this program would basically give these cities that have mass transit, it would cover 60% of their operating costs. So you're basically making people in Kansas, Tennessee, and Florida pay for the failing mass transit systems in places like New York City, which really New York City, their mass transit was failing long before as far as how it's run. And that's in large part because the public sector unions have a stranglehold on the city government. The typical union worker for the mass transit system there is making upwards of $150,000 per year. And we're going to put those costs on the hardworking taxpayers across the rest of the country. That is unfair and doesn't make sense.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.